Hello, hello, and welcome to Wisdom Wednesday. It is December 7th, and we are in Proverbs 7. We only have a few more Wisdom Wednesdays left of the 2022 year before we get into the next year's cycle. We're going to be looking at Proverbs chapter 7 today and going through a few of the verses in there. And Proverbs chapter 7 starts off by Solomon speaking to his children. And what we see in the first 9 chapters of Proverbs, this back and forth dichotomy between the way of folly and the way of wisdom, which is totally shaped in Solomon's speaking to his sons surrounding finding an adulterous woman or a prostitute, which would be the way of folly, and finding wisdom, which would be the way of success. And so Solomon kind of deals with this challenge with his children, and it's something that we walk through as well. And maybe our cultures don't have as much access to these things as was written about, but we can still find the principles to draw out from here. As we read the beginning of Proverbs chapter 7, we see that Solomon says, "Keep my words and treasure up my commandments with you. Keep my commandments and live. Keep my teaching as the apple of your eye. Bind them on your fingers and write them on the tablets of your heart. Say to wisdom, you are my sister, and call insight your intimate friend, to keep you from the forbidden woman, from the adulteress with her smooth words." And as we look at this and see the value that it is to hear the wisdom of those who have gone before us, especially our parents. There is great wisdom found with experience. I've had someone tell me the difference between wisdom and knowledge. As knowledge is learning from your mistake, wisdom is learning from the mistakes of others. And if we take time to listen to those mistakes, to those things that people have learned, and we begin to treasure them in our heart, we begin to allow them to guide our steps, we will find that we make less of those same mistakes. Common phrase is that history always repeats itself. And so when we neglect to understand what's happened before, we're bound to repeat those same things. And Proverbs chapter 7 speaks of nothing different than this. It says, "Listen, bind, write, and live the words that you've been instructed, the wisdom that's been handed to you." And of course, it's important to assess that wisdom. Not all wisdom is wisdom. Some of it is actually just suspicion masquerading as discernment. But what we need to do is we need to take this and we need to seek the wisdom that's in existence, and we need to apply it. I heard a great concept spoken by someone I had watched a video on YouTube, and they had basically said they have with them at all times this little question that they ask themselves: what would a wise person do in this situation? What would a wise person do in that situation? And so when things come up, rather than going, "Hey, what should I do in this situation?" they go, "What would a smart person do? What would this type of person do?" And then as they are emulating the wisdom of those who have gone before them, they find themselves making these decisions that instinctively they know what to do. They just need to trick themselves into asking that question. As we read through Proverbs 7, we see that Solomon gives a very lengthy description into what it looks like to follow the way of the adulterous woman. You know, we see a young man walking along the streets, and this woman approaches him and says, all these things are set in motions. The stars have aligned, and now we can finally, you can come home with me. My husband is gone, and I've paid my dues, and I've set my bed and put on my perfumes." And we see that there's this great expanse given for simple pleasures. And as we read through Proverbs 7, we see this individual who follows the way of simple and quick pleasures rather than the way of wisdom. And if we take the entirety of Proverbs 1 through 9 and we smash them together and we say, what is the big picture here? It's simply this, that Solomon says that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and that wisdom is the most desirable thing to obtain. Therefore, we can follow that following after God, having reverence for the Lord, is the most obtainable thing for you and I to have. It's the most important thing, that all other pleasantries, all other momentary joys or desires are set aside as we relentlessly pursue Jesus, as we relentlessly pursue not gratification in this moment, but long-term and eternal value in following after Jesus and what he has. Solomon ends chapter 7. He says, "Let your heart not turn aside to her ways. Do not stray into her paths. For many a victim has she laid low, and all her slain are a mighty throng. Her house is the way to Sheol, going down to the chambers of death." And we see that this constant seeking of pleasantries, this constant seeking of self-desires and gratifications leads to death. It leads to destruction. It is not a way of valuable life. And so Solomon's challenge here, and he steps into Proverbs 8, which is the blessing of wisdom, right? He lays out the dangers that are found here. And in Proverbs 8, he goes into the blessings that are found as we pursue the wisdom of God. So I wanted to encourage you today, friend, that regardless of the situation you're in, step back, assess, listen to the voice of wisdom, and if it means giving up on a pleasantry today for something even better in the future, it's probably well worth it. The strength we have from finding fellowship and friendship with Jesus is of greater value to us in the long run. So go and read Proverbs 7. If you want to have the big swing of the dichotomy, also read Proverbs chapter 8 in retrospect to 7. Join them together, and I'd love to hear some of your thoughts on these subjects as well. We will see you next week on the 14th for our next Wisdom Wednesday. God bless, and thanks for spending time with us.